Welcome to Surrender School. This is the science of Step 1. So I am going to do my little spiel on my caveats and disclaimers because I do that every session. I am not a medical doctor. I am not a scientist or an expert in the science of obesity and addiction. I'm just a desperate compulsive overeater food addict. I'm not saying that my way is the right, best, or only way to approach abstinence and food plans. And always, always, always check with your doctor before doing anything different with your food plan. All right, so last session, we talked about stress and the stress hormone cortisol, and we explored the ways that stress and cortisol impact our disease and eating behavior. We also talked about how the steps, emotional sobriety, and our relationship with our higher power are really crucial, critical in handling stress, reducing cortisol, and helping us to live life on life's terms without using food to cope. So today we're going to talk about self-care. And self-care is a heck of a lot more than a hot bubble bath. Hot bubble baths are nice, and I do them frequently. But self-care is a lot more critical to our program and our ability to get and stay abstinent. Self-care is critical in this because we suck at it, okay? The only self-care I knew how to do was to eat. That's the only way I knew how to take care of myself. And so we've talked about several different kinds of self-care in this workshop so far, in all the different strategies I've talked about. We've talked about step work, we've talked about emotional sobriety work, higher power work, physical feel-good strategies, things that make our physical body feel good. We've talked about social feel-good strategies, connecting with other people, other fellows. We've also talked about spiritual feel-good strategies, and that's connecting with our higher powers, having conscious contact, spending quality time with our higher power. Today, we're going to look at two other kinds of self-care strategies. Now, in the study guide, I talked about sleep, hydration, and exercise. I'm going to let hydration and exercise stand on its own from the study guide. I'm going to go over sleep today, and I'm going to go over a kind of self-care that is a little bit different and is not listed in the study guide, and it's called epigenetics, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. So I don't know if it's true for you, but it's definitely true for me that I believed the lie that self-care or putting myself first, my own self-care first, was selfish. It was selfish and really almost sinful to take care of myself first before taking care of others. And what I've come to know in my own program is that if I do not do my self-care, there is, first of all, just from a logical standpoint, if I don't take care of myself first, I can't take care of others. I don't have anything to take care of them with. An empty vessel can't pour anything out. So from a logical standpoint, that's true, and that's easy to see as being true. What's harder to see, though, I think, with regard to self-care and our abstinence and our programs, is that if I do not do self-care, I can't stay abstinent, and I don't have a program from which to help me live life. So self-care is about a lot more than just making Linda feel good. It's really about survival for me. Okay, so I am going to go over sleep. I know I went over it in the study guide, but I'm going to go over it again because it is the honest to God foundation of all of the other self-care techniques and strategies that we've talked about and that we're going to talk about today. It is the foundation. I cannot do anything else if my sleep is not taken care of. And sleep actually happens to be incredibly important in obesity and weight management. And it is a very important part of my program. Poor quality sleep or sleep deprivation significantly affects food intake. More specifically, it causes an increase in the eating of high-calorie foods, our alcoholic binge foods. And it does this in a lot of different ways. Poor quality and insufficient sleep increases cortisol secretion because the body interprets lack of sleep as a significant stressor. And we know what happens when we increase cortisol secretion. We learned that last time. When we do that, we eat a lot of binge foods and alcoholic foods and foods that are not good for us in our program. Now, when we do that, that means that a lot of other things are thrown off. So sleep problems increase cortisol because our body sees it as stress, and cortisol increases our food intake. That's the first thing. Next, sleep problems also increase, and this is interesting to me, and I'm trying to kind of reason it out in my head, but it increases the secretion of the hunger hormone ghrelin. So if we don't get a good night's sleep, we are more hungry overall, just from the hormonal secretion of ghrelin. This naturally increases the value that our non-conscious brain puts on food. So this makes us a lot more susceptible to food cues in our environment. Again, there's that food environment factor for us that's so important. So we start seeing the drive-thrus, we start seeing the candy dishes, we start seeing them more, and food calls to us more. Sleep problems also reduce leptin in our brains, and we know what happens when our brains don't register leptin. Our brains think we're starving, and a lot of things happen to then make us eat more because of that. And messing with leptin also screws up our lipostat, that thing in our brain that sets the amount of fat that is supposed to be on our body. It makes the lipostat raise when we don't get good sleep. Our body wants more fat on our bodies because of it. Sleep problems also change the way our bodies metabolize food, which I thought was fascinating. It decreases our insulin sensitivity. So what that means is our insulin doesn't work as well as it should. So we wind up producing more insulin. And we know what that means. If we push our insulin levels higher, our fat storage goes up because it's the fat storage hormone. So it keeps us fatter. Now, in addition to this, our energy expenditure, the amount of calories we burn at rest and with activity, our energy expenditure gets decreased. And this happens because sleep deprivation decreases our TSH or thyroid hormone levels. Sleep is really important for the regulation of our hormones. It just is. And so this means that overall, we are burning less calories because we have not slept. Sleep problems also decrease or impair the overall functioning of our brains. This impairs our ability to control impulses. We all know that we are off our game when we don't have a good night's sleep. And part of that is because our brain just doesn't work as well. And so we don't have, the way I think of it is it decreases our ability to defend against all of the food cues and food pushers we have in our life. The people that bring in donuts to the office, we have less of a defense against those donuts because our brain doesn't work as well. And last, but absolutely not least, sleep problems impair our bodies and brains from doing important repair and maintenance work on cells. When we're sleeping, we're not just taking time off. There's a lot of important crap that goes on in our body when we're sleeping. There's something called the glymphatic system, and this is a fairly newly discovered system that goes on in our brain while we're sleeping. And you've heard of the lymphatic system, and that's the fluid system in the brain that kind of disposes of garbage and keeps things, cleaned out and running smoothly. The glymphatic system does that in our brain. And if we don't sleep well, the glymphatic system doesn't operate as well, and this increases the overall inflammation in our brains and does further damage in our brains. So sleep is freaking critical for not just our addiction and our obesity and our ability to follow a food plan and stay abstinent. It has a lot of other effects as well. But for our purposes, it's critical for our own programs and our own ability to follow a food plan. Are there any questions on the importance of sleep at this point?
No questions so far.
Okay. All right. We are going to go on to genetics, and more specifically epigenetics. This is a famous quote from the former head of the entire National Institutes of Health. Now, the National Institutes of Health they are the major scientific research body in our government for biomedical research, for health research. And there are different institutes. There's like the Kidney Institute and the Drug Abuse Institute and the diabetes, they have all kinds of different institutes. There's aging, so this guy was the director of the entire conglomeration of institutes. Most of the funding of medical research that goes on in our country comes from NIH, the National Institutes of Health. They are the major funder of research. They do in-house research in these institutes I talked about, and then they fund research in all of the universities in our country. So they are the major funding source for all medical research in our country, in America. And this is the quote that he had, and I think it's freaking brilliant. Genetics loads the gun and environment pulls the trigger. So we know that genetics right now, they have identified about 900 genes that are involved in some way with obesity, in some way. About 70 to 75% of obesity is heritable or is genetic. There's a genetic component to it. This is very important because we talk about being bodily and mentally different from our fellows. And that's what this whole workshop has been about. The ways that we are bodily and mentally different from our fellows, and kind of explaining the science behind our food addiction, which is all step one. And this is going to explain it even more. So genetics is definitely a part of it, but the more important part of it are those 900 genes that can be turned on and off through a process called epigenetics. Epigenetics is different from genetics. It's basically the environment's effect on our genes. The environment turns on or off genes in our body. Just because we have a genetic load to be obese doesn't mean we have to be obese, that it's inevitable. We can work with epigenetics to help us turn on and off useful genes, turn off not useful genes, and turn on useful genes. And these are the ways you're looking on this circle of all the different ways the environment impacts our genes. The way the scientific literature puts it is how our genes express themselves. Okay, epigenetics is the way that that is done, which is great because there's nothing we can do about our genes, but there's a lot we can do within our environment to help ourselves. There's also a lot we can do within our environment to hurt ourselves with regard to obesity and our food addiction. Okay, so I'm going to give you the technical definition of epigenetics. So epigenetics is a dynamic process, something that's going on all the time, all the time. It's not a one and done, it's all the time. It's a dynamic process, and it reflects the interplay between the body and its surroundings. Epigenetics involves the chemical changes caused by our environment that change how our bodies read our DNA. There are a lot of epigenetic factors that contribute to our obesity and food addiction. These are the factors that make our obesity and food addiction worse. And we're going to talk about those first. First is what's called obesogenic exposures. Obesogenics just means creates obesity. Okay, that's what it means. It creates obesity. And these are exposures in our daily lives that can increase the possibility or a gene expression of obesity. Okay, first one is organophosphate pesticides and herbicides. Now, these are typically endocrine disruptors. So most of the chemicals, like on this list in this slide, most of them have their obesogenic fact or obesogenic effect by being endocrine disruptors. An endocrine disruptor is anything that messes with our hormonal system. The endocrine system is just our system of hormones. So most of these chemicals are what's called endocrine disruptors, and they are really important in obesity. First one is organophosphate pesticides and herbicides. I try and buy organic when I can. Organic is expensive. So I focus most of my organic purchases of fruits and veggies on what's called the Dirty Dozen. There's a group called the Environmental Working Group. If you Google that, you can find them. Environmental Working Group. And they put out a list every year of the dirty dozen. And those are the fruits and vegetables that have the most pesticide and herbicide residue on them, okay, or within them. And so I focus my organic purchasing on the dirty dozen the most. And I try and buy organic for that list. Okay. Strawberries are almost always on that list. So I do that. And actually, in the Wednesday session, there's actually a free app that the Environmental Working Group put out that you can get in your app store that lists some of this kinds of information. And the person that gave it to me, I haven't tried it yet, but the person that spoke about it said you can actually put a UPC code up to your phone, and that app will tell you what kind of chemicals are in whatever product or food that you're looking at. So that's pretty cool. The next chemical, environmental chemical that can be a problem as far as obesity is concerned are parabens and phthalates. Parabens are often preservatives, and phthalates are often in plastics, and they're also used in fragrances a lot. So you find phthalates a lot in plastic toys, and you find them a lot in perfumes, cosmetics, and body products. And the problem with perfumes, cosmetics, and body products is when we put it on our skin is an organ, and our skin will absorb those chemicals through the skin. I mean, that's how transdermal patches work, is that the chemical or drug is absorbed through the skin. So I try and avoid these kinds of chemicals in my body products. It used to be really hard to do that. In the last maybe 10 or 15 years, it's gotten a heck of a lot easier. And you can easily buy most of your products without those kinds of chemicals in them. BPA, or bisphenol A, is found in plastics, and they were often found in plastic water bottles. Most water bottles now don't have BPA in them, but I don't use other plastics around my food either, because BPA is just one of the many chemicals involved in the creation of plastic. And so I use mostly glass around my food products. I never microwave in plastic. And I always use steel water bottles for that reason as well. And then there's just your basic garden variety everyday pollution that we deal with in our lives. And, there's not a heck of a lot we're going to be able to do about that. I avoid exercising or hanging out outside on the patio on high pollution advisory days. I live in an urban area. And, I don't exercise outside on high pollution days. I do the best I can. I drink filtered water, but there's not a lot you can do about the environmental chemical exposure we get. So those are the chemical exposures that make obesity worse. Then there's a whole bunch of dietary factors, and we've actually been talking about those during this entire workshop. But I'll just go over them really, really briefly. I'm not talking about calories, the calorie load. I'm talking about the types of food that we eat can turn on and off genetic expression for us. There's a huge difference epigenetically between 200 calories of broccoli and 200 calories of donut. They do things differently within our body. They are metabolized differently. Highly processed, bingy, alcoholic-y foods cause negative epigenetic changes in our bodies. And simple, unconcentrated, unprocessed whole foods cause positive epigenetic changes in our bodies. And I'll go through that a little bit more later. Physical inactivity is a negative impact on our epigenetic body. We need physical activity as a metabolic regulator. It helps to regulate our metabolic hormones. For example, it increases insulin sensitivity of our skeletal muscles, which helps keep our insulin levels lower, which is what we want to do in obesity. So being physically inactive does things epigenetically in our body that's negative for our obesity. We just got done talking about the negative impacts of sleep epigenetically for us. Sleep is incredibly important for epigenetically to turn on positive genes that help us regulate our metabolism and help us prevent obesity. So we just went through all of that. Another thing that is negative as epigenetically as far as obesity and our food addiction is concerned is alcohol intake. Alcohol isn't a good idea because it messes with our satiety hormones. It makes us feel less full. And when we drink, we can eat more. Okay. Now, and it's really not about calories, it's about hormones. It decreases our satiety hormones and it decreases our insulin sensitivity. So it makes us have to excrete more insulin, and it decreases our energy metabolism. So we burn less calories. So it's not about the literal calories in the alcohol. It's about alcohol's effect on how our hormones work. So alcohol has a negative epigenetic effect for us. Now that's, I don't drink, I've never had a problem with alcohol. So I will occasionally, I'd say maybe half a dozen times during the year, I will have a glass of alcohol. But I know that that is not smart with regard to my own epigenetic factors inside of my own body. And I do it actually less and less because, quite frankly, I enjoy it less and less. As I get older, my tolerance for alcohol's gone way, way down, and all I wind up with is a headache. All I need is like a half a glass of wine, and I wind up with a headache. Now we're going to go on to the helpful stuff, and which to me is the coolest thing about all of this. And this is really the underpinning of my philosophy change as food as medicine. Not food as a coping mechanism, but food as medicine, because food changes things epigenetically in our bodies. They can do it in a hurtful way or a helpful way. And I want to go through the helpful epigenetic changes right now. Now, there are a lot of them. Okay, I'm going to go through. Here we go. The first thing we can do is increase short chain fatty acid production in our body. Now, short chain fatty acids are formed in the large intestine by your gut microbiome, and that's all the bacteria that lives in your gut, which is a lot, which is like, I think they said it's like about 2 pounds of your gut. 2 pounds of your body weight is bacteria in your gut. The best way to do this is by eating lots of fiber-rich foods like fruits and veggies and legumes, like we do in our own healthy food plan anyway. And they help, short-chain fatty acids epigenetically help us by regulating fat metabolism. It increases fat burning and it decreases fat storage. And they do this through the stimulation of multiple hormonal and neural pathways between the connection and the communication between our brain and our gut. So short chain fatty acids provide important information back up to the brain. Okay, that's one way. Here's another way. Polyunsaturated fatty acids are fatty acids that reduce fat storage and improve sugar metabolism. They also decrease inflammation that's associated with obesity. So these are things like walnuts, chia seeds, flax seeds, pine nuts. So they're the polyunsaturated fatty acids. So one of the things epigenetically we can do is increase our intake of polyunsaturated fatty acids. Then there's, let's see if I can say this without butchering it too much. Epigallocatechin gallate, which is EGCG for short. And you want to increase that. And that comes from green tea. This also decreases the inflammation associated with obesity. And it also decreases blood sugar and blood insulin levels. So green tea is as healthy as everyone says it is. Dietary isoflavones. Okay, now this is a picture of tofu. I'm sure all of you are thrilled. Okay, now dietary isoflavones increase insulin sensitivity, thereby lowering our baseline levels of insulin. They help keep our insulin levels low. Mostly you get dietary isoflavones through soybeans, other legumes and beans, tofu and tempeh, which is fermented soybeans. Those are places that you can get dietary isoflavones. Okay, next, turmeric, or more specifically, curcumin from turmeric. Curcumin inhibits adipogenesis, adipo fat genesis creation. So it inhibits new fat creation, and it suppresses, again, the inflammation caused by obesity. So it's highly anti-inflammatory, and it inhibits the creation of new fat. Then there's resveratrol, which is an antioxidant from red and purple fruit. And this, again, improves insulin sensitivity, so it helps keep our baseline insulin levels lower. And it's a very powerful antioxidant, anti-inflammatory compound as well. Then there's sulforaphane. And sulforaphane is an antioxidant from cruciferous vegetables. And this also decreases adipogenesis, or fat creation. And it also decreases inflammation again. Inflammation is really important in obesity, in case you hadn't noticed. A lot of the things that help us with obesity help decrease inflammation. And so the one cruciferous veggie that is the highest in sulforaphane is broccoli sprouts. Now, broccoli and cauliflower and cabbage and kale and all of that stuff, that has sulforaphane in it, but the highest amount is in broccoli sprouts. You know, like everybody's seen the alfalfa sprouts. That used to be a big granola-y thing to eat. But broccoli sprouts, they're a little bit more bitter than alfalfa sprouts. You can get them in health food stores. They're extremely easy to sprout yourself if you want to grow sprouts. And it'll be cheaper too. I mean, I have everything, but I have everything to do it. I just haven't dipped my toe in the water and actually sprouted anything yet. But I do have everything I need to do it. I just need to try it. And here's another one. Diol disulfide, which is garlic. This is a compound found in garlic. Garlic also suppresses fat creation, adipogenesis, and it also decreases inflammation again. So a lot of these compounds are they kind of do like inhibit fat creation, increase our insulin sensitivity, and decrease inflammation. That's the three major kind of epigenetic factors from all these dietary tweaks you can do. A couple of other ones that I don't have slides on. is EVOO, extra virgin olive oil. That contains, and this is something I did not know, that contains a compound, a phenol, an antioxidant called oleocanthal. And that has been shown to block an enzyme in fatty tissue called fatty acid synthase. And this is an enzyme that creates fat out of excess dietary carbohydrates. So extra virgin olive oil blocks this creation of fat from carbohydrate, which I thought was fascinating. I mean, extra virgin olive oil has other stuff in it that's really good for you, but that was as far as what we care about in obesity. I thought that was fascinating. Another dietary tweak, epigenetic tweak you can do is 100% cacao with 0% sugar. That's the important part, people, 0% sugar. So you can get chocolate bars that are 100% cacao. Now, most, heavy duty, powerful dark chocolate bars are 85% cacao and 15% sugar. We do not want anything with sugar in it. So you can get 100% cacao bars. They essentially taste like your mother's or grandmother's old baking chocolate. When things were made by scratch that way. Very bitter, not sweet at all. They can be triggering for some people because they smell like a chocolate bar. But they do have some good epigenetic properties to them. They have magnesium and they have flavonols, which are another type of phenol, which is an antioxidant, and they improve sensitivity, again, keeping your insulin levels low. They improve vascular function and they improve blood flow to the brain. So if you can tolerate the bitterness of it and it's not triggering, then it's a nice epigenetic tweak you can do. So there are lots of places to look for this kind of information, okay? These kinds of nutritional epigenetic tweaks that you can make to your food plan.
So Linda, I've had a lot of questions come in. Can I ask a few right now just to, while you have the, okay, you just finished your listing. So one was the list of seeds that you mentioned just before the green tea. I know pine nuts was one of them. Can you go back to that part of the thing and list the seeds again?
And I'll talk about this actually in more detail in the strategy section, but it's essentially walnuts, chia seeds, flax seeds, pine nuts. Yeah, nuts are good for polyunsaturated fatty acids.
Okay, thank you. And then another one that was asked is, are the short chain fatty acids that regulate fat metabolism by increasing fat burning affected by those who have had their gallbladder removed?
That's an interesting question. That's a very smart question. I don't think so, because essentially how it works, and this actually comes in later, but I'll talk about it now since the question is now. Short chain fatty acids are made in the large intestine in your gut, and they are made from resistant starch. And this is starch that is not digested by us. It's digested by our bacteria in our gut. Okay, so we eat the resistant starch. It passes through our digestive system without being digested. It gets down to the large intestine. Our bacteria down there eat it, and they produce short chain fatty acids in response to eating that resistant starch. So your gallbladder is bypassed in this process. So it doesn't matter if your gallbladder has been removed for that.
Okay, the next question is, do we need to eat all of the types of food that you've been talking about, or is just a few good enough?
Excellent question. There is you can really go down a very dangerous rabbit hole here, which clearly I have gone down, or at least too far down. Just some of these, just when you have a choice between this or that, you choose the thing that can tweak your food plan a little bit. It's, you don't have to get obsessive about it. You can have moderation in it. I mean, I'm probably more obsessed than most, in case you can't tell. There's actually a new eating disorder that has been developed or coined, I guess. I think it's called orthexia or orthexia or something like that. And it's obsessive, an eating disorder where you obsess about the healthiness of the food you're eating, and it makes you eat really weird. So you can go way too far on this stuff. And the thing is to just tweak it. Like I said, if you can choose a healthier option, choose that, you choose the healthier option. I probably go overboard on this, if I'm being honest. So no, you don't have to do everything I'm talking about here.
Okay, so one more question and then we can move on.
Okay.
Since sleep is so important, why do you think that so many of people with eating disorders also have sleep disorders?
I think one of the things that can happen, I've worked with several sponsees that have, okay, so this can go either way. You can sleep too much or you can sleep not enough. I don't know the epigenetic changes that occur with sleeping too much. I do know that many of us with food addiction and obesity are also comorbidly depressed. And with depression will come hypersomnia, which is sleeping too much. Okay. I don't know what the epigenetic changes are for that. I only know, I've only seen in the literature about what happens to us when we don't get enough sleep. So I have worked with several sponsees that have serious issues with getting enough sleep. Like they can't get to sleep, they can't stay asleep, they only sleep maybe 4 or 5 hours a night. And what I see in those folks is that they get to a certain amount of weight loss, and it's not that much, maybe 5%, 5 to 10% of what they need to lose, and then they can't budge. And I think it is related to their sleep disturbance, because they'll, and I believe them when they tell me, if you're telling me that you are following a specific food plan and I know what you're eating, I'm going to believe you. And they could not budge, and it was horribly disheartening. And I kept trying to pound on the importance of sleep, and I couldn't get anybody to believe me, because we take it so for granted, and we think of it as wasted time or downtime, or it's not that important, but a lot of important things happen with sleep. So I can't really answer that question, I don't think, because I don't know.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
All right. So there's a lot of information out there, and a good chunk of it is absolute BS. People telling you that all you have to do is boil banana peels and then drink that water 3 times a day and you'll lose 100 pounds in 2 weeks. There is so much crap out there. So you have to get your information from really reputable, vetted sources. And I've got 2 sources up here where I get most of my information. One is let me see where oh goodness. One is pubmed.gov, which is a clearinghouse for scientific papers, research. And it's got a search engine, and you can search whatever you want to look for. It's excellent. A lot of what you're going to get is only an abstract of the article. And sometimes you'll be able to get the whole article itself. It depends on who paid for it. whether or not you can get the whole article or not. Another place that I get nutrition information or these kinds of tweaks is nutritionfacts.org. It's a nonprofit, and it's a group of people. It's very vegan based, but don't let that dissuade you, because they talk about fruits and veggies and that kind of stuff a lot. And all of us eat fruit and veggies, hopefully. And they're little videos. They're like 3 to 5 minute videos that talk about, the best bean or the best nut or the best tea or the benefits of certain kinds of foodstuffs. So either one of those places has reputable, reliable information that you can trust. Okay, because there's so much out there that's crap. Okay, so we're gonna go on because I've talked my brains out and I'm really sorry about that. Okay, so I'm gonna go through my suggestions on strategies for sleep and specific epigenetic things that I do. Okay, for sleep, I have a routine. I go to bed and wake up the same time every day, 7 days a week. I don't stay up late on the weekends and sleep in. I go to bed at 9 o'clock. I get up at 5:45 every day without fail. That way my body gets in a rhythm. My body knows what to expect and it gets in a circadian rhythm, okay? I don't watch TV or surf the internet or read in my bedroom. The bedroom is for romance and sleep, and that's it. I don't do anything else. I minimize blue light exposure for a couple of hours before bed. Blue light is a spectrum of light that we used to only get from the sun. And it's very important in regulating our biological clock. When our brain senses blue light, it means we're supposed to be up and awake and moving around. And so it really has a heavy-duty effect on our biological clocks for sleep-wake cycles. So blue light at the wrong time messes with hormones that are involved in sleep for us. It suppresses the secretion of melatonin, which is an important sleep hormone. It also increases our blood glucose levels. Okay, because that makes sense. We're supposed to be up, moving around, doing things to ensure our survival during the day. So blue light is associated with activity in our brains. So we need fuel for activity. And so our blood glucose levels are higher. And blue light also decreases our leptin levels, which of course makes us feel hungrier. Okay, and it impacts our ability to be full. So I changed out our bedroom lights and our bathroom night light with amber lights. So there's no blue light in the bedroom. I wear blue light blockers when I watch TV at night or if I'm on my devices at night. I wear an eye mask when I sleep to make the room completely, totally dark, because I don't know about you, but I live in a room full of little lights. I mean, our modern houses have little lights on absolutely everything that stay illuminated all the time. I also don't eat late. I have about a 3 to 4 hour window of time between my dinner and the time I go to bed. Because going to bed on a full stomach impacts or impairs sleep. It impairs the quality of the sleep. Okay, I'm going to go through my epigenetic suggestions as well. So, and I've talked about some of these. I buy organic when I can. Otherwise, I wash my fruits and veggies really well. I read labels on personal products to avoid parabens and phthalates. I avoid plastics around my food and my drinks. It's either glass or a steel water bottle. I take into account air quality for my time outside. I do the best that I can. Nothing is 100% on this stuff. I just do the best I can. After a while, I incorporated physical activity into my program. When my brain started seeing my leptin, after my hormones got better regulated, I actually felt like moving. So I started with walking and I kind of built up slowly from there. I work on getting between 7 and 8 hours of good quality sleep. It's probably closer, now that I've retired, it's probably closer to between 8 and 9 hours of sleep that I get every night. I avoid alcohol. I just don't, I mean, it's not a moral thing. It's just because of what it does epigenetically for me. So those are the things that I do epigenetically from a basic level. And then now I'm going to go into my dietary suggestions, the kinds of crazy stuff I do that way. That's a little bit crazier, you guys. So, you know, take it for what it's worth. Okay. So I increase my short chain fatty acid production. I eat a lot of veggies. I eat a lot of fruit. And I also eat unmodified or resistant potato starch. So I mix 1 heaping teaspoon of unmodified potato starch in an 8-ounce glass of water, and I drink that twice a day. Okay. So that it, you know, that's not stuff I digest. That's specifically for feeding my pet bacteria in my large colon. I also increase polyunsaturated fatty acids. Again, that's through walnuts, flax seeds, chia seeds, pine nuts. Essentially, as part of my food plan, I eat 1 ounce of walnuts daily. I also add chia seeds to my muffins that I have for breakfast. My muffins, they're not really muffins, but they're muffins. And I eat a tablespoon of raw unsalted pumpkin seeds, or otherwise known as pepitas, for my lunch and at my dinner. And all of those are polyunsaturated fatty acids. I increase my EGCG by drinking green tea. I have a cup of green tea first thing in the morning, and then I also have a cup of decaffeinated green tea in the evening after dinner. I increase my dietary isoflavones, primarily through tofu or tempeh. I have 1/3 of a block of air fried either tofu or tempeh a day. I occasionally eat soybeans in my salads as my protein. I also will eat dry roasted edamame that's just lightly salted. It's a crunchy, I like it because it's crunchy. And I will put that in my salad or my soup, either at lunch or dinner. Now, it's not flavored dry roasted edamame, which they have a lot of that because that has a lot of crap in it, but it's just plain old dry roasted, lightly salted edamame or soy nuts. That's what they're called. Okay. I also increase curcumin. I drink a cup of ginger turmeric tea that I buy at Trader Joe's. It's cheap and it tastes good, so I like it. So I drink a cup of that a day. I also take a curcumin supplement. Now, I like to get my good stuff mostly from food because that's my little philosophy about food as medicine. So I prefer food over supplements, but this is one of the cases where I do take a supplement. I take a curcumin supplement. I also increased resveratrol intake through eating red and purple fruits. There's also another antioxidant in purple fruits called anthocyanins, in blue and purple fruits called anthocyanins. It's a very powerful antioxidant. So I eat a lot of berries for my fruit. I also drink a concoction made out of freeze-dried cranberries, blueberries, elderberries, pomegranate, and tart cherries. And so I just mix up, I buy it on Amazon, organic freeze-dried of these types of berries, and I mix it all together in a big container. And then I drink 8 ounces of water with a teaspoon of that freeze-dried berry mixture in it twice a day, along with my potato starch. And that's just to increase my resveratrol and my anthocyanin. It's not particularly sweet. You know, it's really the, well, essentially for berries, it's really the skin that you want, because that's where the resveratrol and the anthocyanin are stored, is in the actual skin of the berries. Okay, I increased my sulforaphane intake. I have at least a half a cup of cruciferous veggies every day. I just make sure I get that. And I am considering growing sprouts if I get up the nerve. I also increased my garlic intake. Now I have to be careful with this because I did once have the best roasted garlic salad of my life one time. And I wound up on the couch for several days. My wife wouldn't even let me in bed because I just reeked of garlic. It was the best roasted garlic salad in the world, but you don't want to do that. I mean, you could smell me coming a mile away. So I try and be a little judicious on this. I added garlic powder to my spice mix that I coat my tofu with for air frying. And I also add fresh garlic to my soup stock when I make my soup for my lunches. I would eat way more of it if I could get away with it, because I love garlic, but I can't. But I do make sure that I have some every day. All right. Boy, I'm sorry I talked so long, guys. That's all I've got today. I just want to say before we stop, next session is our final session together. And I'm going to try and wrap things up and go over what I've learned in my journey into the science over the past 6 years. Okay, this has been a 6-year journey for me. And I've stuffed all of that into a 7-week course. So if you feel overwhelmed, I'm sorry about that. I did put in there everything I learned. But I want to go through the way that I approach program and kind of putting all of this together with my program and the importance of the 12 steps in all of this. So I will share that, and we will have time to exchange ideas and comment and share next week as well. So that's it for me this week. So we can open it up for questions.
I do have a handful of questions that came in. Okay. So the first one, this person says that they have these ingredients in their hormone replacement therapy, and it is carbomer, ethanol, and trolamine. And it's asking, is that something that that person needs to worry about?
I don't know. I don't know. If you wanted to Google those or you could even go to the environmental working group and do a search within that website. I suspect they are given that it's hormone replacement therapy, they are probably in small enough amounts that you're probably okay. That's just off the top of my head. But if you really want to know that, you can check it out, either Googling it or taking it to the environmental working group.
Okay, and here's another question, which is, how or do you do vitamin supplementation, and how does that play on the epigenetics? And it asks specifically any info on B12. She has a family who is low in B12, and so she's curious about that.
Okay. These are the supplements I take. Now, I'm a vegetarian, so I definitely substitute. I do a supplement of B12 because you only get it from animal foods. So so I do supplement B12. As far as I know, I think it's fine. B12 is very important, and you can get cognitive problems from a deficiency in B12. I also do a multivitamin, just a women's no iron multivitamin every day. I'm not sure if I need it, but I do it. I also, since I don't eat fish, I supplement with a vegetarian DHA, EPA, like omega-3 supplement thing. I do that. And I do take a curcumin supplement, and I have allergies, so I'm trying a quercetin supplement. Now you can get quercetin in fruit, but I have bad allergies, so I'm trying that. I don't know if it's making any difference or not. So those are the things that I'm taking. But I think, for the most part, if we're eating a good diet, I think we do get what we need, unless you have specific restrictions on your diet like I do. So I add some other things. I think I decided that I wanted to take the multivitamin because of B vitamins. I wanted to make sure I was getting enough B vitamins because I don't eat a lot of grain. Just from my own, food plan and weight management kind of standpoint. I don't know if that
Okay,
helped or not, you guys.
that was good. Thank you. The next one is, can you explain how potato starch works? And then
Yes.
they said, I thought the starch was based on glucose rather than fatty acids. So if you can explain how that works, that'd be great.
The reason that there's a difference between starch that we eat in our diet and resistant starch. The starches that we eat in our diet that we can digest, yes, they are switched over to glucose, and they will impact your blood glucose level and therefore your insulin levels. The resistant starch is not, it's not capable of being digested in our system. So we don't digest it. So it doesn't impact our glucose levels or our insulin levels. It passes through our digestive system, and it's digested by the bacteria in our large intestine. So we don't digest it. Our gut bacteria digest it. That's why it doesn't impact our blood glucose.
Awesome. Okay, so the next question is, I've been taking turmeric supplement and then powder in a drink, but recently heard that you can take too much turmeric.
Yes, you
Have you
can.
heard? Okay.
Yes, you can. Turmeric and spinach both have what's called oxalates in them. And if you have kidney disease, or if you are prone to kidney stones, you should stay away from that stuff, because oxalates can form in the body to make kidney stones. So you don't want to overdo on any of that stuff. That's why moderation is so important in all of this. Is you don't want to overdo any of this stuff, because any of it will, you just don't. I mean, because these are food impacts our bodies. We always seem to think that it doesn't do anything, but food impacts our bodies greatly. What we put in our mouths and is digested impacts us and impacts our health in very direct ways. So you need to pay attention to that. So yes, thank you for that question.
Okay, so here's another one. It says, I eat very similar to what you eat. As a warning, I was increasing the amount of powder so it became sweeter and sweeter. And the fruit powders for this person basically became a route to get a sugar hit.
Yes, it can. It can. I was trying, and all you can do is do the experiment and see what you get. The fruit powders don't do anything for me, but I will tell you a situation that I was trying to I'm turning 60 in a few days. And as we get older, we lose muscle mass, and you can get what's called sarcopenia. And I'm trying to preserve my muscle mass. And so one of the things you do is you increase your protein intake, although you have to be careful with that too. So I was supplementing in my little muffins. I was putting in a serving of protein powder. This protein powder had monk fruit in it as a sweetener. So monk fruit is not an artificial sweetener. It's a it's a fruit. It was powdered, but it's many more times sweet than sugar. And I didn't really think anything of it. And all of a sudden, I started really looking forward to my muffins. And then I noticed I was like really thinking about my muffins in off times. Like I enjoy my meals, but I don't think about them between mealtime. And then when I looked a little further, it was like, oh, okay. So I couldn't tolerate the monk fruit. Some people can, but I can't. So those berry powders don't trigger me, but the monk fruit did. And so I had to give up that protein powder because it just was too exciting. So you really have to do the experiment and see for yourself what you can do.
Okay, I think that is the final question that here. So back to you.
Okay. See you next week.